So this is going to be a weekly thing, so you can come every week if you want. Do you want some of my coffee? I'll put it in tap for you.
Thank you. It has my water. It's water time.
Ah, gotcha. That necklace is beautiful too.
Thank you.
Now, do you want to actually go over the subject that I had planned for today, or
Yeah.
no? Is this something that you're aware of? The we are one, the law of one type things?
Probably not officially.
Okay. So, for me, it was kind of an awakening moment when I was meditating deeply and I asked about God. And I was like, I get it. Like, trying to fathom what God is and what it means makes my brain fart, like, and then just stop. You know, like, it's not even a concept I can understand, like, who made God, then who made that God, and then who made that God, and then all the stuff, you know, like something had to come from somewhere.
What even is God?
What even is, like, all the stuff. So I said, in the simplest form that you can teach my tiny little human brain, show me what God is. And I got what looked like everything and nothing simultaneously. And so I was like, okay, get it, but again, you know, I'm gonna need you to clarify a little bit more. And so from there, I got the law of one. So I Googled it, the law of one. And I got a book that was written by, you know, some, like a Ford engineer person and someone else, and they had a channel with them. And they were channeling information from what was called the Ra, or the law of one.
Like the same Ra as in the Eye of Ra?
Yes.
Okay.
The Ra as in the sun god from ancient Egypt, the Ra. Now I'm jumping a little bit in this, but the Ra were a series of beings, and that when they're channeled, which they've been channeled by multiple people, they say we. They are a singularity and individuals at once. But when you ask them to speak to you, they say, we are Ra. They identify as a whole. So that was a future jump forward. Go back to them, asking them to clarify for me in my meditation what we were, what God was, creation, the whole thing, how we're all connected, because at the time you have to understand, I still harbored a lot of hatred towards other people. I still had a lot of traumas that I wasn't fully worked on yet, but I was getting there. And so I asked them to clarify down what the law of one was, and it showed me a singular cell. And that cell then turned into my face. And then the cell next to me turned into a face. And then the cell next to me, and the cell next to me, and the cell next to me. And before I knew it, there were just faces everywhere. And then I saw that we, all the people on this planet, are an individual cell in the overall body of God, meaning we are God, and that is the law of one. We are the whole, and in our mind's concept, we call the whole God, or source, or whatever it is, the collective consciousness, Christ consciousness, whatever that is to you or anybody else. I mean, I'm down with whatever. But we are all an independent portion of a whole. But we're taught to live so independently that we don't recognize others in our daily everythings. Like, we crave connection. Like, the connection I have with you is so beautiful, and the connection I have with Nicole is so beautiful, and we crave these connections. But at the same time, we struggle so hard to be individualized that we don't ever truly connect. So that didn't make a lot of sense to me. So I was like, okay, let's keep breaking this down. We're gonna take it a step further. So I get it. We're all one in the body of a whole. I was like, but we're individuals. And he said, you'll learn that you're not. And so that didn't make a lot of sense to me too. So the next thing that they showed me was that all the faces turned to my face, and that each face was only different because it was a different perspective. So we are literally just one thing and one thing only, and that is the whole. And that in that, the whole decides, I need to learn every lesson there is to learn. So how am I going to do that? So I'm going to send out every single little piece of myself to go individually learn something different simultaneously. And I am going to learn everything all at once. And that is why they say everything exists in all space, all time, simultaneously, and is happening right now. So that means there's no past, there's no present, and there's no future. There just is. So I know that's a lot.
It's funny, what popped into my head is the scene in Pulp Fiction. I think it's Pulp Fiction? No, Fifth Element, where the Fifth Element comes down and she's like getting all of this information like downloaded instantly off the internet, like as she's watching, like it's all just like coming together.
Yes. Okay. But there's another thing to that too. And something that I didn't know what it was. I thought I would always call it spiritual pulling, because I didn't have a word for it. But I actually heard something the other day that gave it an even better word, and it's called quantum jumping. We have access to every dimension that we live in all space, in all time, simultaneously, right now. Meaning that my main timeline, I'll give you a second since you're writing. Okay. My main timeline that I am choosing for myself is this singularity, this perspective. But I also exist in another timeline. And it's as you and in yours. You're just a different perspective of the reality of the whole, just like I'm a different perspective. I'm a different perspective of your reality, and you're a different perspective of mine, because we are simultaneously also the same reality.
Kind of like how we see what we reflect out there, like
yes.
What we put out there is what we get back.
Absolutely. And that's why a lot of people will have that saying, like when you give someone a compliment and they're like, oh, you're just seeing the divineness in yourself through me. You know, like, and you hear that phrase and you're like, oh, I want to punch you in the face because I don't even know what you just said to me right now. But
I was like, I have never in my life heard that.
I have been told that multiple times. Like, but it's also can be said in the opposite. If you are truly triggered by somebody, and you'll hear somebody be like, really, am I the one that triggers you? Or are you just triggered by something that I represent? Mm-hmm. That's that already in you. Yeah. Yes. So you can hear it in both ways.
It in the negative way and not in the positive way.
Not in the positive way. I've heard it in both. Yeah. But the first time I heard that phrase was probably 20 years ago. And I remember thinking, because I didn't spiritually awaken until I was 19. And so 20 years ago, I was young 20s when I heard that phrase for the first time, and I was like, I think you're just trying to be weird. Like, are you just trying to say weird things to me to show that you're more spiritual than I am? So I didn't get it then, but I finally figured it out later, much later, and it's because we're all one, literally. Every single one of us is and I wrote this little phrase, we are all one grand, beautiful consciousness sharing a unified experience with different perspectives. Therefore, when you see another person, you're just seeing a different perspective of yourself. And the reason I started spiritual mentoring off with this specific thing is because in order to know yourself, you have to know without. As above, so below. So within, so without. So the best way to spiritually expand is to first open the mind to the reality that you are everywhere, at all time, in all space, and that there isn't anything truly outside of you, that everything is within you. Now,
that is not processing in my brain.
I know it's a little hard. So this will be some fun homework this week, but I promise you there will be a full instance where it will come into play, because just being here and just hearing the words, you have already set into motion your will to accept and understand that. So it's going to happen no matter what.
I honestly came into this thinking we were going to learn like grounding techniques.
We're going to do that too. We can do that too at the end. Okay. So, although usually the grounding techniques I teach more in the protecting your energy class.
That makes sense.
We can definitely do that today because grounding's super important because again, we're not separate from the earth.
I just need to come to
Earth is so much of a part of us, but we have truly separated ourselves off. Again, that whole law of one is for everything. Every form of life, from what we consider unconscious, which is minerals, all the way to the most conscious, which is human. It's all connected. It's why pets feel like familiars instead of just a pet. And I do truly believe that some pets incarnate for a specific person to hold space for that person and help them. So yeah, maybe they are familiars. But I went off track and now I got a little dumb. No, it's me. So everything's connected, even the earth. But we train ourselves to disconnect from everything to be individuals. We wear shoes on our feet now instead of putting our feet on the ground. We live in concrete jungles. We rarely feel the actual earth. Now I disagree when people say that you can't ground unless your feet's in the dirt and the grass, because there's nothing deeper and more connected to the earth than the minerals we pull up and make concrete out of. So even though it's not what we consider living earth, meaning it doesn't breathe and synthesize and have a consciousness, which we now know that plants do, it doesn't mean that it's not living earth.
So does concrete put out a frequency?
It absolutely does. All minerals do. And they're so important to us that our body needs 113 base different minerals just to function and survive. So everything that comes out of the earth, not just what we consider the living earth, is so important to us that we should and need to be connecting into it. So I do believe that you can literally ground from being on the concrete. It doesn't have to be in the grass, a living, communicative thing in order to ground. But that's just me. So we're going to go back to where we're all one connectedness part. And so with that, it means that I've had to learn that one, no experience we have here is truly who we are. We have what is called an oversoul or a highest self. And that highest self also is doing the same thing that the united whole or God or the collective consciousness is doing. And it's also trying to learn its individual lessons. And so my consciousness, my highest self, has sent a piece of itself off to incarnate. And it's been a Nobel Peace winner. It's been a lottery winner. It's been a professor. It's been a mass murderer. It's been a child molester. It's been an aborted baby before. It's been every single possible thing that it could be in some dimension, in some form of consciousness, in some individual's main timeline. I am something completely different than I am here, meaning it all exists all at the same time, all at once, if that's making sense. So I see it like this when it's shown to me. I see me etherically. There is no mass to me when I see that. I see all of us as these like ever moving and fluid moving energies. And then above us is a bulb, a glowing bulb. And so when I back out enough, I can see the whole city and see all these dots everywhere. And then I back out even further and there's millions of dots, and I back out further and there's even more millions of dots. But each glowing ball or dot is an individual's main timeline. So the closer you are to the dimensions and timelines closest to you, meaning the ones you can instantly move and shift into and pull into, the ones that are the closest to you, you can shift back and forth between those timelines like that. So have you ever felt like, man, I feel so disconnected and weird and things are just kind of off and I'm not getting it, or I'm extremely emotional right now, or this friendship's not working the way it used to. I don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
It means some portion of our timeline shifted and that you're pulling in from the timelines closest to you. So, for instance, I'll give an example. My fixed timeline here, I'm the owner of Zen. In a friend of mine's fixed timeline, who's very close to me, I'm still the owner of Zen, but maybe I give Zen up. And in another friend's fixed timeline, there's a version of me that never gives up Zen. And then in another one, there's a version of me that's not doing the spiritual work. And then there's another one, you see what I'm saying? Like all these timelines really close to me are things that I can instantly pull in for myself from your timeline. And then they just kind of shift a little bit. So then as the people get removed further and further out, so somebody in Japan who I don't even know at all, maybe in that timeline is where I exist as a mass murderer. Or maybe in a timeline of somebody in Brazil that I don't even know, there is the timeline where I won the lottery. So they're not aware of my timeline because we don't know each other and I'm not aware of theirs. But in theirs, in the background, is a reality that's nowhere near the one that I have right now. That's what quantum jumping is. It's the ability to realize that you exist in all space and time right now. And it's how far do you have to pull to get that portion of your timeline to come in closer so that you can activate it in. So for instance, I say every day for a year, I won $10 million. I won $10 million. Everything you say and do creates a new neurological pathway in your mind that makes it happen, that makes it a reality, which is why they say fake it till you make it. But I actually prefer the phrase, be it till you become it.
Talk it into existence.
Talking it into existence, absolutely. So when we manifest, it's in 3 ways. I don't know what the secret book was that told you how to manifest. I know that at some point people are like, don't read this book because it's missing the vital information. But the vital information was as simple as this to me when it was told to me. My guides said, whatever you think, whatever you feel, and then whatever you act upon becomes. So if you remember, I don't know if you've ever read the Bible, I didn't, but I was told a phrase that forced me to look it up. And in that phrase...
Do you mean, well, not that it matters, I was going to say, do you mean New Testament or Old Testament?
I have no idea, because I haven't read either. I didn't grow up in it. So maybe you might know it. I only looked up the phrase to find out who said it, and it was Moses. And Moses said, I am, when he met God, and he said, who are you? God responded, I am that I am, and I am that I will be. And I think that a lot of people took that as saying, like, I am what I am right now, and then I am what I am in the future, like what could be. But I was shown that that's not true. That what God was saying is that I am what I am, and I am what I will into being. Meaning, you're any and everything that you want to be if you decide, if you will it be. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So, in the reality somewhere out here, I exist as a lotto winner. One, I have to think it. I have to play that scenario in my head so much that I can feel it. Now I actually have emotions attached to it. And then from there, I have to physically do an action. So it's a thought, a feeling, and an action, and that's full manifestation. So think it till you can feel it. And once you can feel it, create an action to make it happen. From that, you start to draw that dimension, that reality, closer and closer to you. Now it just depends because everything happens instantaneously. Manifestation is instant. And I know that people get angry when you hear that word or you hear that and you go, yeah, but is it? Because I said it and it didn't just appear. So what they mean by manifestation is instant is that when it's done correctly, it's instant. Let it go. Because the moment you harp on it, you are leaving yourself open to changing that manifestation. You know when you did it. So it usually happens when you're not thinking about it. And it's something you're like, oh, I said that last week. Then that means that all in that split second that you said something, like say you say, I'm getting a new cat next week. And, then you get it instantly. It's because when you said it, you didn't think about it. You thought it, you felt it, and then you said it, and then it became instant. Now, instant in 3D is not instant the way it is in the higher dimensions. And that's because it's got physical mass to move through. In higher dimensions where bodies aren't as important because we don't need them, it's instant. It happened instantly in the ether, but it has to go through all these levels here to become instant here. And here it's thick and heavy. I don't know if you've ever felt what it feels like to be completely weightless.
Not sober.
Okay. Well, it's the closest thing that I can correlate it to, because there have been times where I knew what it felt like to be outside of this body.
I'd say like floating water is the closest I've gotten to like feeling weightless.
Gotcha. So in certain meditations, I have been outside of this body. I'm not a physical being, meaning I don't have mass. I am a being, but I was a light being. And then there was even times in my manifestation, in my meditations, that I was able to literally crawl out of this weird hole. And as soon as I did, it was just all white. Everywhere, all white. It was so light and so loving and so kind that I literally crawled out of this hole and just flopped like a fish onto the ground, because the feeling of how heavy it felt to live in the third dimension and to have it off of me for a moment was so immense that all I could do was lay there. And I was like, is this what it feels like here? And the answer I got was yes. And that was where all highest selves reside. And I was like, thank you for the break. And then the hole sucked me right back down in and into the body. And I was like, dang it. But I at least was able to truly understand what it felt like to be completely outside of the body. So in being completely weightless and understanding that in the higher dimensions, things are instant, I understood that in here, through everything we want has to maneuver through a thickness. It has to maneuver through air, light matter, dark matter. We think there's nothing here, but it's filled with light and dark matter. Then it has to maneuver through all the individual beings and all the things. So while it happened instantaneously on a higher realm, we, experiencing time as linear, it takes a little longer, because their time's not linear. It's all just there. Literally just, there you go. It's there. It's like hitting enter on a keyboard, and it happened. So you can access any portion of your dimensions and draw in anything that you want from any dimension, from meaning any perspective of your reality that exists in somebody else's reality. That's why we're all connected. So who I perceive as a murderer, there's someone in the world who doesn't know that person's a murderer. And in that person's reality, that person might be the Buddha. Because we exist doing everything. And in that, it gave me an immense understanding of other people's paths and the hard things people chose to incarnate and do. Like, do something that would wreck the soul and cause you to spend your entire existence here in a prison. To experience a complete lack of love for self and others, that you could even be in that position in the first place. So it made me have a complete understanding and compassion for even people who are just murderers, like just the foulest of the foul, who would not care for 1 second about my well-being or even their own, knowing that that's not who they truly are as a whole, that it was just a learning experience that they had to learn here and now. Hey, baby. So that's why I wanted to make that be the first thing, because that changed my life in such a drastic way that I wish it wouldn't have come in the middle of my spiritual awakening. I wish it would have came 10 years earlier in the beginning of it, because it was at that moment that I understood myself and others much better. So the practice for this week is going to be to look at everyone and everything around you as if it is you. Give me one person you don't like to look at.
My ex-husband.
Okay. Why don't you like to look at your ex-husband?
Brings up our relationship.
Okay. Now, imagine your roles switch. Imagine that he's you, and everything that you feel is now his feelings. And then you are him. And that everything he's done, you're now doing. Even just pick one thing that he does. One thing.
Good or bad?
Let's pick something bad.
Okay.
Why does he do it?
Finds comfort in it.
Why does he find comfort in it?
Why does anybody find comfort in smoking cigarettes?
Okay, I can help with that. It's an addiction, and they find comfort in it. It alters the body. It alters the way you feel and your energetic levels. And people alter the way they feel and their energetic levels because they don't feel like they're enough. So if you now can see the base of why people do things, and you realize that the bad things they do, they put them off onto other people for one reason and one reason only. They're trying to get rid of their pain. And the only way they know to do it is to try and put it on somebody else. Do they actually want to hurt anybody? No. But they're so in pain that they would rather just let you have it so that they can have a moment of reprieve than to actually deal with it sometimes. So I'll go into something for myself. I was a very abusive person at one point in time. And I was verbally abusive to a lot of people in my life. And in my mind, I was just talking to people. I can't just have a conversation with you. I can't just be real with you. I just can't be honest. I mean, I'm just being honest, right? I'm just saying, like, everything that came out of my mouth was this aggressive abuse.
That reminds me of my brother.
Okay, so that used to be me. So much so that I had a friend who was like, I want nothing to do with you. You're the most selfish person I have ever met in my life. And most people would be like, that is not how I would describe you. But that's because I did the work. And yes, I had people tell me honestly that I was doing these things. And my excuse was to always justify it. Well, I'm just saying the truth. If you can't handle the truth, that says more about you than it does me. Well, I shouldn't have to change for you. If I'm offending you, that says more about you than it does me. And then I even started to spiritually justify the reasons I would do things. Well, I'm just speaking my truth. If you can't handle that, then you need to go do your work. You know, like all of these things.
Mm-hmm.
And then one day it came into my awareness that I had to actually start to work on these things. And my question, the first thing that came up was, what is the one thing people complain about you the most? And I was like, nothing. And then I went to sleep that night, and in it I had the dream that where I had been told multiple times that I'm verbally abusive. And I saw my responses in every case. And so I said, okay, let's work under the premise that I am verbally abusive to people, that I say horrible, nasty things to people. Why do I do it? And I had to be really honest with myself. And the truth is that I was just trying to hurt people because that's my go-to. I feel comfortable in hurt. I also feel comfortable in disconnection. I feel comfortable in creating trauma for myself. And the list kept going on and on and on. And to the point where within a few days, I was like, I'm the most disgusting human I have ever met in my life. And I truly was able to see that for what it was. I was completely wrecking my husband, and blaming it on him. I had actually made him believe it was all his fault. So not only was I verbally abusive, but I was extremely manipulative too. Yeah. So I was the queen of gaslighting. And so I had to keep going deeper and deeper and deeper and be like, okay, well, why am I doing that? I'm doing it because it's a defense mechanism. Why is it a defense mechanism? Because I was sexually assaulted as a child and I didn't deal with it correctly. Well, why didn't you deal with it correctly? And what is it you didn't do? I held on to that trauma as if it was my own instead of pushing it off and returning it to sender. Like, I had to get super deep and then realize that right there was this dark cloud where I had taken someone else's energy that was forced onto me and held it. I made it mine. Instead of going, man, this happened to me, but it happened for me, not to me. How do I make this the best situation possible? And so there was a point in time I had to take it off and be like, thank you. You protected me for so long. I found comfort in holding on to you. I found comfort in using you as an excuse, but I don't want to do that anymore. So I'm going to release you and send you back because you're not mine. I no longer accept you as my own. And I send you off in love. And that's when something in me broke to the point where I was able to work on myself and the things that I was doing in a way that was so raw, because at that point I was naked. Like, all the defenses and things I had built up and used were gone because I didn't want to do that anymore, which made me naked and raw. So now I was having to retrain myself. When someone said something that triggered me, I had to stop for a moment, look at it and be like, okay, why is this triggering me and why is this making me mad? And I would continue to ask myself why, until I got to something that snapped at a real answer. So I started doing that for the people around me. Why does this person hurt my feelings? Oh, they do it because they're projecting their hurt. It's their way of removing the hurt, or they think that they are. Or maybe in this case, misery likes company. They don't want to feel alone, so they need to break the things around them and things like that. So it started to make me realize that everybody is connected. When I thought of that person in a better way, it changed that person's reality. That's quantum. We can prove in quantum theory that a particle here and a particle here, completely separate, you can do something to one water molecule here and it will happen here because they're entrained, they're intertwined. Everything's quantumly intertwined. So me changing my outlook on me, because everybody else is quantumly entangled into me, started changing everybody else's view of me. You see? It is. It's so powerful. So you have to use the people around you in order to do that. And in order to do that, you have to accept that they are you and you are them. I am that I am. Meaning, I am me and I am you. So if in me somewhere is the ability to be you and the ability to be me, because we're intertwined, then all of our perspectives start to melt together at some point in time. And you want to change your perspective to the reality, change your own perspective to yourself. And it's going to automatically do it. So we're quantumly connected because we're all one. So that's why I said that this week, first homework would be to look at everybody. Even try this phrase, I am that, I am.
I am that. I am.
Yeah. So not in the way it was said in the Bible, but in the fact that I am that and I am. So if somebody triggers you, I am that. Look at it and be like, why am I that? Where has that been in my life that it's now triggering me?
But owning it instead of just
Yes.
no.
Yes. Instead of spiritually bypassing, ask the whys. Keep asking why until it's really hard. Do you want to practice something?
So somebody that I like thinking about is my daughter, my little one.
Mhm.
And she recently called me play. She said that I love to play.
Mhm.
And then I had to like think about how like I am a lot, like I get to be silly with her and playful, and I am play,
You are.
and I am.
Yes. We use other people to draw out things within ourselves because it exists already in that other person. We just have to adapt it as our own. So, give me one thing you would like to release or let go of. Or one thing that truly triggers you. Just one thing that just irks the fuck out of you.
Whining.
Whining. Okay. Why? We're going to play the why game.
It's like nails on a chalkboard in my brain.
Okay. Why?
Why? I can't understand it. I don't know how to fix it.
Why? Do you need to fix it?
Because then it'll stop.
There's a deeper meaning to that one.
Why do I need to fix the whining? To be able to communicate better.
Okay. Oh, you mean physical whining. Like,
Yes.
you don't understand your child's whining.
But like people whine, not just
Okay.
kids.
So, is it...
Any whining.
Okay, so let's go even deeper.
Moaning, groaning.
So that you can fix it. Why would you need to fix it? Does fixing things make you feel special or important?
It makes me feel in control.
Okay, why do you need the control?
Because it's safe when you're in control.
Why do you need to be safe?
Because if you're not safe, then what are you?
Okay. So, identity. Why do you need your identity?
I don't know.
Let's try it my way. Ask me for something that irks the shit out of me.
What is something that irks the shit out of you?
Dang, you see what happens after 27 years of doing the work? Very few things aggravate the shit out of me. Okay, when things aren't done exactly the way I want them to be, sometimes I get there.
Why does that bother you?
Because I need control.
Why?
Control makes me feel safe.
Why?
Because I spent the entire beginning of my life not feeling safe. There's more whys.
Why?
Because I was sexually assaulted by somebody who was supposed to protect me.
Why?
Because he's hurt.
Why?
Because someone did it to him, and the only way for him to release the pain was to try and give it to somebody else.
I don't want to say why, but we already know because something happened to that person.
Now you see we got all the way to the bottom of the whys, and it's about being as true to yourself as possible. Why do you need control? It's because you felt like you didn't have it. Why do you need to feel safe? It's because at some point in time in your life you weren't safe. Anything that you need that is an ego-based thing like control and
So it drives me crazy because nobody helped my whining when I was little. Because nobody helped their whining when they were little.
now think about how your parents were raised.
Oh God. It's amazing how I turned out as well as I did.
Think about our parents and how they were raised. We talk about all the trauma that was placed on us by our parents, but man, if we truly look at our parents now, fuck, to have grown up in a world where women had to be so silent. They didn't
That is
have
exactly
a
right.
choice. They had a role and they had to stick to it. I mean, men had this narcissistic mindset placed over them that they had to be the controller and bearer of all, and they couldn't enjoy their lives, they couldn't enjoy their children, they couldn't enjoy their marriages. You know, like the trauma that was placed around the people who put the traumas on us are so great that they almost kind of overshadow, but now you understand.
It's like my dad's parents were Holocaust survivors. How do you healthy raise a child when you have trauma like that?
Absolutely.
And like you have a scarcity mentality that has been ingrained into you because of trauma that has been passed down from generation.
And now you have a different view of your parents. So it doesn't matter how much trauma's there, you now understand a small aspect. So if you trace everything back in your life to the people it came from, and then put yourself in their place as if you're them, then all of a sudden you realize we're all connected and it's all one experience, just piggybacking each other. But at the same time, don't forget you chose it.
When I started learning about attachment style, I started realizing like my parents' trauma and how that affected me.
So all these people out there going, but I didn't choose to be born. Yeah, you did. Sorry.
The first time you said that to me, I was like, but what about these poor kids that are assaulted or that are killed at 2 years old or
They
have
chose
abusive parents?
the experience, because everything, life
There's some
is
sort
a
of
learning
lesson.
experience. We choose to do some lives carefree and happy, and we choose to do some as fucking hard as we can. But we chose it. We chose our experiences that we needed. So it's like being in school. You're in college and you're like, okay, just pick and choose stuff, have fun. You pick all your fun classes first, right? But then in order to graduate, you're like, oh, there's those lingering classes over there that I still have to do. And so you're like, all right, fine, I'll do one a semester. And you choose it. It's no different than your life. You're doing the same exact thing. You are, before you incarnate, it's like college. You're going to pick your major, okay? And with that comes so many experiences that you have to do. Now, in order to do that, you then pick your professors. Who is going to help me do this best? And then you go, oh, well, that mom, yeah, she's not going to hold support for me. I'm going to learn this trauma from her. This dad, he's going to do those things to me. And I'm going to learn this trauma from him. And then this person 23 years later is going to come into my life, and that person's going to do something that helps me turn all that around and find myself. And then this person is going to represent a different trauma. And then this person's trauma is going to introduce me to this person's trauma, who is then going to make me become this person in this year. Like, it's all laid out. And we have people in play just in case we accidentally fall off the path, because the path looks like this, like, you know, it's not like this.
Party doesn't do what they were supposed to.
Or if somebody didn't do what they were supposed to do, because we have the option here. We have the free enough will here to make our decisions. So it's possible we could fall off track. We have people in place that have been like, yeah, girl, I'm going to do this for you. We're best friends in this life, but in this life, we hate each other. And because we hate each other, I'm going to repel you so much that you're going to be drawn to these people. And that's going to be the person that's going to help. So you see how it's all intertwined? Every single person in your entire existence is there for a reason and there to keep you on track and on path. So you don't actually hate anybody. You just feel like you do here because it was something you chose in order to help keep you in alignment. You don't do anything here on accident. Everything here is part of the whole, keeping you learning the lessons that we have to learn. So therefore, again, we come back to the fact that you need every single being on this planet. You need their traumas, you need their happiness, you need the hatred you have for them, you need everything, because some portion of your reality exists in every single reality incarnate right now. It's just which ones do you quantumly jump and start pulling towards you? You're not necessarily pulling the person, you're pulling your portion of their reality in for yourself. So I do like the term quantum jumping. It's way better than what I called it. But it also helped it make sense. So if there's a portion of you that's like, I am going to heal from having a crusty black toe, then you're going to manifest it by imagining what that's like not to have the crusty black toe, feeling what it feels like to put on your shoes with no crusty black toe, and then actually do what you need to do to fix crusty black toe. And in that, you're drawing that dimension to you, that portion of your dimension and reality, because there is a portion out there in someone else's reality where you don't have crusty black toe.
I like that.
It's a lot of information, huh? It
It
didn't
is.
seem like it would be when it says work on our connection to all. But now you know why our connection to all is so important. You know, I'll take my daughter, for instance, what you need, babe?
Grandson wanted to.
Give me a gift. Okay.
So freaking cute.
Thanks, booby. Mwah, love it. Oh, it's so beautiful like you. It's a
He's
succulent
tall.
hug. He is.
I was like, mine's
Weird kid
7,
looking girl,
and
so
I
she
feel like
can
he's
do
the
my
same
second.
height.
Yeah, soon he'll be bigger than me.
So, for instance, I'm going to use my daughter as an example. Her and I had a tumultuous relationship from the moment she was born. It's nobody's fault but mine.
Wow.
But keep in mind, she chose this. She chose me because she knew I would wreck her in every possible way. She did.
Turned
It
out
was a
right.
learning lesson that she chose to experience. I was a teen mother who was a drug addict. And in that, how could you possibly raise a child well? You can't. You can't. I wrecked her every stage of her life. She was forced to be independent from a very early age because I was unreliable. I was never around. She got shuffled around. She didn't know stability. She didn't know nurturing. She didn't know connection or anything. Really, her only real connection was with her grandparents. They were the ones who gave her that sense of stability and love and nurturing that I wasn't, but they did it in a different way. They did it in an enabling way because they were trying to make up for what I was, you know? So when it came down to it, she ended up following in my footsteps. She got in trouble with the law. She started using drugs. She did everything that I did. She destroyed herself and was destroyed by me. So whatever I didn't destroy, she in turn did it to herself. Thoroughly, just like I did. Whatever my parents didn't destroy in me, I did it. And I became to a point where I was so broken, just like she did. We had no relationship, none whatsoever. We were completely estranged. And in that time frame, I was going through what I was practicing, becoming a quantum healer. And in that process, quantum healing is not about changing the people outside of you. You never do that. It's against free will. The people outside of you are who they're supposed to be. All you're ever supposed to do is change yourself. Okay? So in that, I started looking and they said, go back to the very first instance you failed her as a child. The hardest thing for a parent to do is say, one, that they even did that. And then to actually look at it. And I was like, well, I don't know. Did I not give her some Cheerios when she wanted them?
I'm like, man, mine was in the hospital when she was first born. And I went potty and like the bed moved.
Right. Okay. Similar. Finally, I tried to spiritually bypass, but then I realized I'm not going to do this. I'm just going to fucking do this shit. Start remembering your life. I remembered yelling at her. I remembered punishments. I remembered harsh punishments. I remembered neglect. I remembered all these things. And I just kept going back and I said, please show me where to start. And in it, I had this memory of when she was a baby. She was only a few months old, a few weeks old, like maybe 12 weeks old, but I had to go to work. I was 17 years old with a kid. So, and I had no money because I was actually homeless the first few weeks that I had her. And so in that, I was like, well, I'm going to get a job, but I don't know who can watch her. So I had a roommate at the time who was letting me just crash in her house till I got a job, and then was going to pay her back all the money for the rents and stuff. Her mom was babysitting Alexis. And the very first day I went to go pick her up, she was watching TV in the front room of her house, and Alexis was nowhere to be found. And she's like, yeah, she's in the back room sleeping. And I went in, and the room was dark. It was warm, like there was no AC on back there, no fan or anything. And so I was like, oh, that's kind of stuffy in here. So I picked her up, and she was soaked through her onesie, completely soaked through her onesie. And not even crying. She wasn't making any sound except this. You know, the sound that they make when they've cried so much they don't even have the energy to cry anymore. And I realized that the bed was soaking wet. She had been there for hours. Her diaper was so thick that you could smell the urine all over her. So between sweat and crying and urine, she was soaked. Her diaper hadn't been changed. And both bottles I sent her with were still in her diaper bag. And I picked her up, and I put her on my chest, and I said, just patted her butt, and I said, I'm so sorry. And I put her in her car seat, and I walked out, and I didn't say a word. And I brought her back the next day. And it happened again. And so that day, I picked her up, and I left, and I still didn't say a fucking word. And I called my boss, and I said, I don't think I can keep this job. I have no one to watch her. And I explained to him what happened. And he said, bring her. We'll put her in the back room. Like literally, where I could
At
just
least
keep
there,
going
yeah,
back.
you can feed her and check her.
And check her and change her. And that same person gave me an advance on my paycheck to put her in an actual daycare. And that was the first time I failed her. So when I was quantumly doing the work, while, mind you, my daughter ended up in prison. She had destroyed herself to the point where I did, because I ended up in jail too. I went back to that first instance, and I said, that's where I remember failing her for the first time. So I went back to that memory, and I felt what it felt like, and I cried hysterically because I didn't allow myself to cry. I was so damaged back then, I didn't allow myself to cry, even though I felt an emotion which felt like sorrow, and which is why I said I was sorry to her, but I didn't truly feel the emotions of what it was like because I was too damaged to feel them then. So when I went back quantumly, I felt it. I cried hysterically. I was crying in real life. I was crying then. I took her clothes off of her. I sat down. I fed her. I cleaned her with baby wipes. I put a new diaper on her. I put a new outfit on her. I walked out to that front room, and I told that woman to go fuck herself, and that she's lucky I didn't call the police. And I was like, and I will not bring her back, and I will not fucking pay you because this is ridiculous. I went back home. I told my roommate, I said, I'm really sorry if I can't live here because of this, but this is what your mother did. And in that, I felt something release, something changed. Somewhere in my quantum reality, I had actually done that, and I had drawn it in. And then from there, more and more things would come into play, and I would be forced to look at the way I disciplined, the way I treated her, and I had to become a different person. I was quantumly replaying it. And in some instances where I couldn't replay it, I just found myself saying, I forgive you. But it had nothing to do with her. I was only changing myself. And forgiving myself. I was doing this work for 6 solid freaking months. When out of the blue, I get a collect call from her. Hey, Mom. Like nothing had ever happened. You know? And it hit me at that point. Something changed in her too. Me changing my reality was actually changing her reality.
I hope that was working on my TV.
Yes, and was literally changing her reality in the way that she was healing herself, because those traumas, I was pulling them back. They weren't stuck on her anymore. And that was what was giving her the strength to heal herself. She got out and completely 360'd her life. never even slightly went back to the life that she used to have. Became an entirely different human. Was it because of me? Maybe. Maybe not. You know, there are people who will argue, oh, it just happened. But I truly believe that me working on me and drawing back my trauma quantumly helped heal her and give her the strength to do the rest of the work, to heal the things she did to herself. Because remember, I said some of it was from me, the rest of it she did herself. So once I pulled away the things that I did and changed them and gave her the nurturing and the love and the emotion and things that she needed, I felt it gave her the strength to be able to work on the things that she did for herself. Again, comes back to the fact that we're all connected. So this week, work on your connection to everyone and everything, even if they trigger you, even if they hurt you, even if you just don't want to. That's fine. Just pick one person then. Just pick one person, have it be an individual you slightly know in passing, and then slowly work your way to the ones that truly trigger, you know? But find your connection and your resemblance to that person. Understand your reality to that person, and then you'll understand your reality to them. We're all connected. We're all one. Now let me jump forward to the Law of One books that I read. They're amazing. And it validated, because it was the first book that validated everything that I was doing as a channel. I didn't understand my being a channel. I didn't understand where it truly came from. Reading those books really helped, one, validate so many things. I would read the book and be like, oh my God, I already had that information. I already got that information. I already got that information. And then also opened it up to making my ability to work with others and my reality in others real. You want to change your reality with other people? Just do the work inside yourself. It's automatically going to change. And that's it.
That I believe, and I have dealt with, experienced.
Right? No more crying. I mean, you can if you need to. Get it out. Get it out. So, maybe it's your daughter. Realize your connection to her. Find your strength in your connection to everybody, because every single person out there has a piece of you in their reality. Whether it be in the background or the foreground is different. It doesn't matter where it comes
I like the idea
from.
of like calling back the trauma that I put on other people.
Yes, and you can. Because remember I told you about the water molecules being quantumly connected. What you did to one happened to the other. It's that same concept.
Yeah, and just like co-parent has his own other traumas, but if I can take back my little portion,
Yep, don't worry about his part.
then that's one less thing he has to do.
Absolutely. And you know what? Anything that's stuck on her from him, that was contracted. You're not responsible for other people's reality, period. Except for the parts that you can fix within yourself. So don't try to change her. Don't try to change him. Only work on yourself. It's going to automatically change the things that happened within her. And anything else that's contracted there, that's someone else's thing. Like I had to, this was one of the hardest things for me as a person who has trauma, because almost everything we do is a trauma response, right? Being overly attentive is a trauma response. Being underly attentive is a trauma response. So trying to change other people's trauma responses is a trauma response. So if you only work on your own, then you're already doing the work. The hardest thing for me to do was to remember that I'm not responsible for anybody else's reality. I'm not responsible for my mother's reality. I'm not responsible for my dad's reality. I'm not responsible for my daughter's reality. Love you. I'm only responsible for mine.
I'm stealing your scoop, by the way, from that pine pollen.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
That's allergic to pine, so I don't want to keep using our utensils.
Okay. Love you. Any questions? No? What time is it? How long did we ramble? Almost an hour, I think.
It is 2:45.
Mhm.
So right on schedule, pretty much.
Okay. Was it overwhelming? I would like positive feedback.
Is kind of, but also like not.
Okay, so next week what we'll do is we'll go over it because things are going to pop up. I want you to write everything down. Anything that pops up in this. So 2 things. 1, go home and make a clear intention with yourself. Sit quiet for a second and say, I choose to draw in my connection to all. And however that shows up in your life this week, write notes, journal on the back. You can write it anywhere you need. There's lots of things here, but that way you can keep everything connected and you can bring back any questions or experiences that came up that we can work on. And then on the back, it says, what are some negative thought patterns that I tend to fall into when it comes to seeing from another person's perspective? And how can I challenge or reframe them? So, find one negative thought pattern that you do when it comes to seeing things from another person's view. So, for instance, I have a hard time seeing from other people's view political things. Triggers the shit out because I feel like it's just made to disconnect us, keep us all fighting with each other, right? Oh, okay. Let's work on this. So, why does that trigger me so badly? Why does politics trigger me so badly?
Is it really politics, or is it the current people in charge of the politics?
I think it's the fact that it's a control factor. I don't like being controlled.
There's a lot of that.
Okay. Why don't I like being controlled? I don't like being controlled because it makes me feel trapped. Why does being trapped make me feel triggered? It makes me feel triggered because I feel like I have no power in those situations. Why does not having power in that situation trigger me? Because I spent a large portion of my life feeling powerless to stop the things that were happening to me, and the government represents something that happens to me, so I don't like feeling trapped under their bullshit. So I identify politics and government with trauma. Yeah, so just, like, find one negative thought perspective, realize it, and when you do, you've already opened up the door. The door no longer has a deadbolt that you can't escape from. You can now just open that door and do what you will with it. All right, write anything down. We'll go over it next week. And then if we have time, we'll start a new prospect. And feel free to bring me any requested items to work on or talk about, or like grounding and things like that.
Like you telling me the story about your daughter like that. Because you know my situation right now.
I had it. We get it. I love it.
It's crazy how maybe that's the thing in you and in me and in we.
I am that.
And I
am. Yeah. I love you all. All right.